Welcome to Colorado Springs Hypnosis, your resource for hypnosis and personal empowerment. I'm Charles and I'm a hypnotist, and today I'm going to talk about why people fail at hypnosis. Or more appropriately, why people have a hard time with hypnosis sometimes. We'll be talking a little bit about who can be hypnotized, why people think they can't be hypnotized, and actual reasons why people have a hard time going into hypnosis. So stick around for a few moments and we'll get started.
Take a deep breath. Hold. Sleep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wide awake and feeling amazing.
So let's start by talking about who can be hypnotized and who can't be hypnotized. The simple answer to that question with regards to who can be hypnotized is it's almost everybody. Almost everybody in the world can experience hypnosis, and believe it or not, almost everybody has experienced a form of trance in one way or another, even if they haven't gone and seen a hypnotist. Now, there are a few exceptions to this. The first exception would be people that have severe brain damage or a mental disability that stops them from going into hypnosis. This is something that I've heard quite a bit about, but I haven't exactly come across somebody who had something like that made it so they couldn't go into trance. I have worked with people who have had brain injuries such as concussions or TBIs. I've worked with people that were on the spectrum as well, and they were able to go into trance just fine and make changes. So, the caveat on this is there's definitely a certain amount of brain damage or disability that there would be to actually get in the way of this process. The second group of people that have a hard time going into hypnosis, or a lot of times absolutely can't, are people that are under the influence of quite a bit of drugs or alcohol. People that are way too drunk or have been on a lot of other drugs to the point where it's had a big effect on their mind will not necessarily be able to go into trance until they come down and that stuff makes its way out of their system and they're back in a regular mind. Now there is a third group of people, and I'm not going to say these people can't be hypnotized, but they do have a tendency to have a little bit of a problem sometimes, and that's very, very, very logical people. Now, keep in mind, most people have a amount of logic and they can add and do things like that and use their logical functions. I'm talking about the people that are so logical you can't watch a movie with them, or you can't even have a conversation because they're like, technically this and technically that, right? So it's those kind of people. And to be honest, even really, really logical people generally go into hypnosis pretty easily. In a little bit, I'll talk about some of the things that do keep people out of hypnosis, and we'll address that a little bit in the future. But for all intents and purposes, for the most part, everybody can be hypnotized, except for people that are really, really inebriated or have severe learning disabilities or severe mental disabilities of some sort. And that's that. So let's take a moment to talk about the reasons that people believe that they cannot be hypnotized, because as a hypnotist, I see a lot of people for hypnosis, and believe it or not, about half of them come in here thinking that hypnosis is not something that'll work for them. And, generally when they leave, they find that isn't the case. So the first reason that people think that they can't be hypnotized is a really easy one. They have some apprehensions about it, and they just don't want to be hypnotized. And I'll tell you right now, if you don't want to be hypnotized, you are not going to go into trance. All right, and the reason is, in order to go into trance, you have to follow the hypnotist's suggestions, and if you don't follow them, you're not going to get that result. So yeah, that's pretty much the easy answer there. The next reason that people think that they can't be hypnotized is maybe they've tried it before and they experience some sort of failure, and because of that, they think, nope, hypnosis is absolutely not for me. Number one reason for this is you'll see people that have gone up to do a stage show, and they went up on stage and everybody else went into trance just like that, and they didn't do it quite fast enough, and so they got kicked off the stage. And they think that because the hypnotist, excused them from the show, well, they just must not be able to be hypnotized, right? And the thing about that is when you go up on a stage show, those hypnotists have to hypnotize people very fast because they have a show that they're going to do, right? So getting people in a trance, that's actually kind of the boring part. Not very funny, not very entertaining. They want to get to the good stuff. So anybody that's not going in trance really quickly, they're just going to shoot them off the stage. And it doesn't mean they can't be hypnotized. It just means that maybe in the 30 seconds to 2 minutes that hypnotist wanted to spend, they weren't able to do it quickly enough and not as good as everybody else. That being said, that same person can certainly come into an office, and during a one-on-one session, they can experience hypnosis when they're guided more personally. Another thing about trying and maybe failing is someone may have come to an office like mine. They may have seen a hypnotist, and either the hypnotist wasn't able to get them into trance, or they didn't feel like they were in trance, or they didn't make the change. Right now, if you didn't make the change, then obviously the hypnosis session didn't work. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't, or you did or did not go into trance. But it certainly can mean that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about hypnotists and rapport and stuff like that. But sometimes when people go see a hypnotist, it's just not a good fit, and they're not able to get those results. Just like when you go to see a doctor or a counselor, or when you find a good car mechanic, hold on to those people that do it the way that you like to do it. The next group of people that think they can't be hypnotized are people that think hypnosis is fake. And of course, if hypnosis is not real, then obviously it doesn't work. And of course, it wouldn't work on anybody if it wasn't real. They think it's some kind of magic or something like that, right? But those people still can absolutely be hypnotized if they meet a hypnotist and they actually have a reason to go through it. Usually they suddenly become more open to the idea, and they can move forward from that. The last reason that people often think they can not be hypnotized is because they think they either have some sort of ability or disability that'll stop them from going into trance, right? So if we look at the Jedis and stuff where they were like, oh, your mind tricks and things won't work on me, somehow that's translated into our world. And so you hear a lot of people when they talk about, oh, well, I can't be hypnotized, my mind is too strong, and all these other kinds of things. They somehow associate hypnosis with like being taken control over something like that, and that's really not the case. Obviously, the flip side, sometimes people think they have a disability that might stop them from going into hypnosis. I've heard people say, oh, I have ADD, I don't know if I can go to hypnosis, or I'm on the autistic spectrum and I can't go into hypnosis, or sometimes they just think, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I can't concentrate enough. But all that stuff is false. So, yep, that's the easiest way to say it. All that stuff isn't really true. As long as you can pay attention and follow simple instructions, it's very easy to go into hypnosis. So let's talk about the real reasons that people don't go into hypnosis. One of those first reasons is they don't want to. In order to go into hypnosis with the help of a hypnotist anyway, is you have to follow the directions. And if you don't want to, then you're not going to get those results. It's as easy as that. The second reason that people might have a hard time going into hypnosis is because they might be afraid of the process, or they could be afraid of the change they're going to make. Sometimes people are really worried about quitting smoking, and because they have such a worry about the change they're going to make, they can't get into that good mindset. Or they might be just worried about hypnosis because they, saw a scary movie or something like that, and that can cause them to have a hard time. Now, if you're working with a hypnotist that is a good hypnotist, they should help you understand all these things and give you the facts and really kind of put you at ease with some of these ideas. But again, that's part of being a good hypnotist is getting someone in the right mindset to step forward and move into that process. And on that note, another reason that people don't go into hypnosis is if they don't have good rapport with the hypnotist. I can't remember what the study was, but one of the things that they found is people tend to be a little more successful when they're working with a professional for almost anything, if they just like that person. So if you go in there to see your hypnotist and they rub you the wrong way, or they talk in a way that makes you uncomfortable or something like that, it's going to be really hard for them to get you into that state of mind to make change, because everything they're saying just doesn't work. So on that note, if you go to see a hypnotist and for some reason it just seems awkward and uncomfortable for you, they may just not be a good fit. Go find somebody else. The next reason is worrying about doing it right. So hypnosis is a natural thing that we do. All right. Now, when I'm talking about hypnosis, in this context, I'm talking about the act of going down into those delta and theta brainwave levels. All right. We do this all the time when we're daydreaming, when we're sleeping, if we're meditating, if we're focusing on something, really intently, or if we're just kind of watching TV and letting time go by. All these times are times that we go into those states. So it's something that people do naturally anyway, right? But when you go see a hypnotist and he tells you to imagine this, and maybe you're not a visual person, and so it's kind of hazy, or hear that and you're not auditory, sometimes people think that, oh, I'm doing it wrong. And because they get that thought in their mindset, they will end up not following the suggestions. Just because they're so busy worrying about whether or not they're doing it right, they don't actually do it. And that's kind of a hard thing to maybe conceptualize until you've actually tried it. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine a cloud in your mind. And then I want you to start thinking about whether it's even a good idea to think about a cloud. Now, when you start thinking about whether or not it's a good idea, what happens to that cloud? Does it disappear? Yeah, it's because you can't think something in your mind and analyze that thing you're thinking at the same time. So you got to choose. Do you want to follow directions or analyze them? And on that's kind of the last reason that people sometimes have a hard time in hypnosis, is they want to analyze everything that's going on. Right? What we do in hypnosis is not a logical thing. There's a lot of metaphors. There's a lot of visualizations. Like, these things don't necessarily translate exactly across. So if you're, again, in there in your mind and you're wondering why you're floating around or doing this or that or the other thing instead of actually doing it, that analytical process can actually stop you from doing what you need to do. And that I believe is where a lot of analytical people do have a problem, because even though they want to follow the directions and they want to do what they're doing, they have this innate need to watch what's going on and try to figure it out and everything. So with practice, you can kind of subdue that habit a little bit, and then of course, even as a very analytical person, you can go into trance as well, as long as you kind of let go of that analytical part of your mind for a while. Now, last but not least, let's talk about what happens when the hypnotist is just not very good. Right? I've put a lot of stuff on people to want to go into trance and follow the directions and all these other kinds of things. Right? But what if you go in there and your hypnotist is just horrible? That can certainly have an effect. But I will start with this. Hypnotizing people is easy. I know it sounds kind of weird because it's not a normal thing that everybody does, but I've taught several people how to hypnotize other people. I've taught kids how to hypnotize each other, even how to hypnotize adults. It's not a very difficult thing to do. If you have a person in front of you that wants to go into trance, you can almost just tell them to close their eyes and go into a trance, and they will start to do it anyway. It is that easy. Now, keep in mind, if you want to get people into deeper trances and do change work and all these things, there's other techniques that you can learn. But just the basics of hypnotizing someone and getting them into that state of mind is very, very simple. Now, going back to the reasons that people don't go into trance, being afraid or not having good rapport, things like that. So a lot of hypnotists will spend, a certain amount of time. I usually take about an hour. Some will take as little as maybe 20 or 30 minutes to do what's called a pre-talk. And that pre-talk is designed to help, get rid of any fears that a person might have, get them comfortable with the idea and everything like that. And the reason that's important, especially in a therapeutic setting, is because the person coming in here into an office like mine, they may be afraid of hypnosis, or they may not necessarily believe in it completely, or they may have different apprehensions or whatever about it, right? And so before I even get to hypnotizing this person, I have to get them comfortable with the idea of going into hypnosis. And that's where you're really going to see the difference between a good hypnotist and a bad hypnotist, is whether or not they can convince someone to feel comfortable going through that process. Because once they feel comfortable with it, once they know that everything is safe and it's all natural and everything is going to be fine, and in fact it's actually going to feel really good, most people drop in just like that. And I hope this information has been helpful for you today. And if you enjoyed this video, please do like it or subscribe to the channel or share it with anybody that could use this information. And have an amazing day and go be awesome.